So the next morning, the party wakes up after that disturbing dream about Prism. The three of them talk it over with themselves just to kind of confirm that they all three of them shared this dream. And afterwards, they headed down to the main bar in Feldpost Inn. They got themselves some food and drink. The only ones here left now are Purdue, Jesse, and Tarsonis now. They don't see Prism or Bjornen at this time. They figure they're out adventuring. So after getting some food and drink, Devia actually goes and turns in the bandit medallions to Jesse, and Jesse thanks Devia, gives her some gold, and Devia then in turn splits it with the party. And so after getting some breakfast, they head out. They go through the town. They kind of decide that next they want to hunt down those half ogres. But before they do, they're actually going to go back to the smith and to the temple and kind of gear up for this, since they are kind of, at this point, sort of swimming in money. At least I would say have probably roughly 2,000 gold at this point, if I remember correctly. So they go to the smith first. They don't mention to Tarum about the blacksmithing tools just yet. They're going to go back to Thomas about that. But so they gear up, and I remember, I think it was Rowan that actually bought a magical bow. I think it was either Rowan. It was Rowan, I think, that bought a magical bow here. So, and she also bought more arrows of biting, and I think got a couple of arrows of ice as well. And Taveri actually didn't spend anything. She was saving up her money for something really nice, and that'll come later on in another episode. And Devia, she mainly got a lot of potions at the temple, a couple of scrolls, and I think that was about it. So after gathering up all that stuff, they head out from Baragos. They actually are going to, go after those half ogres, so they start heading southwest. And after trekking a long way, seeing some creatures off in the distance, mostly getting there unscathed, I would say it took them about, I want to say about like 10 hours to actually get to this, where the half ogres were last seen around this fisherman's lake. And so they arrive there, and they see two half ogres, and they notice one of them actually is holding, or still has in their possession, Bjornen's amulet. So they really want to try to get this back for him. So they huddle up, and they're kind of talking back and forth between themselves, kind of strategizing. Okay, what are we going to do with these half ogres? Okay, if you go here, you hit them first, etc. But what's great is Taveri all of a sudden pipes up and says, "Well, I just got these beads of fireball," and you can kind of see where this is going. So she doesn't use all of them, but she takes about, I want to say about 3 of them, and just lobs them at the half ogres. And we did the rolls to see if it would hit, and both half ogres actually failed their dexterity saves. So both of them took full damage for this level. I think it was level 5. What would be level 5 fireball. So the beads go off, and the half ogres are just dead. They instantly die. So I thought this encounter would have gotten a lot harder, but I had to just kind of smile when the person playing Taveri said, I have these now. Let me just use these. So they go up afterwards to the half ogres and Taveri takes Bjornen's amulet, and so they take the amulet. They start heading back to Baragos to return it to Bjornen. So they return to Baragos, mostly, again, unscathed. They, again, got lucky on the encounter rolls. They really, that might just honestly become a trend at this point. So they make it back to Baragos, and by this point, they go back to the Feldpost Inn to see if Bjornen and Prism are there. And again, they're still nowhere to be found. So they don't want to worry about it too much because, they figure they're out adventuring. They're fine. They'll return the amulet to them at some point. They did find out, though, or Taveri found out about the amulet, getting it identified that when someone wears it, they're actually immune to fear. So, so she's holding on to that right now. So next, they decide they still haven't found Purdue's loot with the gnolls. They haven't run into any gnolls at this point. Mostly they've just run into kobolds, bandits, and that's mostly about it. Maybe I think a wolf at one point. And so they kind of decide that they're actually going to go after Zerlong's boots, to kind of go up to the Ulcaster ruins and gonna go look for his boots. So they head out towards Ulcaster. So as they head out, Ulcaster is not too far away from Baragus. It's about 3 to 4 hours roughly away from Baragus, just to the southeast. So, and this it's the ruins of an old magic school. So it's actually raised up on this plateau. So they went around the plateau. They went up it, and they got to the top where the ruins are. They start looking around. They immediately find where Zerlong's camp is, and excuse me, I'm sorry. So they find his camp, and they start looking around just to kind of see if they find the boots. And the boots are nowhere to be found. I mean, shock of all shock, right? So they start kind of looking around at the ruins. Most of what was standing buildings have now just kind of fallen in decay and whatnot. So they do find one opening to where they can actually go down into the rest of the inside the plateau to the ruins. So they start heading down, and forgive me as I pull this up to look at the map. So they head in, and as they arrive, not really surprising, but the structure itself is pretty. It looks like it was mainly crafted by dwarves, and so they walk into this circular room with like pillars on support pillars on each side to hold it up, and they could either immediately go keep on going straight through this one door, or there's a door off to their left, and the party immediately wants to go left. So they go left, and it actually opens up into this one room where a locked chest is at. And I want to say it was Rowan at this point. They oh, that's right. They actually at this point wait, hang on. No, I'm sorry. That does not happen yet. They at this point don't have any thieves' tools. So for the most part, they either had to solve puzzles to unlock stuff, or just basically try to beat it open. So it's because they don't have any thieves' tools. They're just going to try to beat the lock open. And hopefully they succeed. And I want to say it was well, I think I remember it was Taviri and Diva. They both tried to get this lock open and couldn't get it open. So it was actually Rowan with her super strength, and just busted this lock right open. So, and as she started to open the chest, though, a shock trap basically went off and actually damaged Rowan by a few health points. So as it goes off, Devia gives Rowan a health potion. She chugs it. She's back up to her normal self. And as they open the chest, they actually find some leftover gold that has been sitting there all these years. And it's about 450. So they split it between the three of them. And then afterwards, they came out and go through the main door, the front door. And as they do, there's now a long hallway that has once again pillars on each side, and there's also another door way to the left. And Rowan immediately checks out that doorway to the left, and it just dead ends. There's like a torch kind of off to the her left as she's just at this dead end, and so she's kind of looking at this going, huh. And Devia and Taveri are both kind of going down the hallway, and they come to it was basically on the floor, 5 columns of stonework, and each of the stones had a different symbol / kind of like pattern to it. So they were checking that out, and we cut back to Rowan, still staring at this wall. So she starts thinking, okay, this might be a secret passage or something. So she starts kind of feeling around the wall to see if she can find anything, and immediately finds a switch as she's places her hand on one of the grooves. So she flips the switch, and the wall starts to move. And as it starts to move, she notices on the other side that there's a spider she sees that kind of starts to go up this web. So she doesn't like spiders, and so she immediately closes it and rejoins the party. She tells the Taveri and Devia about what happened. That could have been a way forward, but that she didn't think they should take it at this time. So they look at these runes, and I want to say it was Devia that pretty much got like a stone on the ground, threw it at one of the other runes on the ground, and as she did, it went up. It set off a trap. So Taveri and Devia, they both said, okay, we're not going to try to solve this. We're just going to kind of go along the edges, because on the edges, I forgot to mention, is actually a drop-off. So if you look down on each side, it just falls into nothing. So they kind of skirt along the edges of the runes successfully. Devia had a little bit more trouble getting past it, but with the help of Taveri, as she made it to the other side, kind of helped Devia over. But Rowan, she was kind of adamant about, she wanted to actually solve this thing. So she kind of starts, faithfully putting her foot on one of the stones. It was like the second from the left, and nothing happens. So she thinks, okay, this is a good starting point. So she takes the next step forward, and once again, nothing happens. So she tries to go on several more. The first time, or like the next one she tries, it's successful, but then after a certain point, she starts stepping on certain ones, and then traps just start going off like crazy, and she starts getting really injured. But she's really adamant she wants to try to solve this thing. So Devia and Taveri both start kind of throwing stones and kind of testing different ones to see which would be the right path forward. So they all three kind of combine their efforts and figure out that it kind of makes like an S shape of a sorts. Kind of goes at angles, if you can imagine that. And so they kind of basically guide Rowan to the correct path, and all three of them make it across. So as they make it across, they now have about 3 doors that they could go to. And it's a door to their right and a door to their left. And then if they go straight on, there's another door to the right. So after debating a little bit of this, they kind of peek around and into all 3 of the doors. And the door to their left, as they peek through it, actually has some more of that green crystal that they found at Dark Hollow Cave, just kind of lining the walls. So they decide they're not going to go through that one just yet. They actually go then immediately to the one to the right. And the one to the right, they peek through it, they actually see 2 zombies in there. And as they see the zombies, they figure, you know what? Because they also see a door past that. So they figured, okay, something must be, good back there. So let's go get it. So they open the door. They roll stealth, and they are successful. So they kind of get in position in the next room, and the next room also has about 6 pillars, 3 on each side that they can kind of hide behind. And then they then go and attack the zombies. And the battle's pretty short. I remember, I want to say it was Devia that got injured just a little bit, and Rowan actually had also a health potion on her and gave it to Devia, and once again they were all good. So the next room right past that, the zombies, once again it kind of a long hallway with a drop off, similar to the previous one. As they got to the other side, there's no traps or anything. But as they get to the other side, they see a face on the wall, kind of like a stone face, I would say. The features are picture kind of like an elven face, and had two purple crystals on each side, just kind of illuminating the wall itself. And off to their right, they see kind of a glass. It looks like a glass window, but it had a bunch of markings on it. And I remember Taveri going up and using her quarterstaff to try to hit it to see if it would break, and nothing would happen. And on the other side, you could see through it, of course, and on the other side is actually what looks like a robe and another staff on the ground. So Taveri really wanted to see what that was all about. So they go up to the elven-looking stone face, and there was an inscription. And I need to zoom in for this one to actually see what I wrote. But the inscription says, I run smoother than most any rhyme. I love to fall but cannot climb. So after a few minutes of pondering this, the party quickly figure out, and Devia volunteers to take her water skin, part of her water skin, and actually pour it on the glass wall. And as she pours it on that glass wall, the wall itself turns to sand, and it just turns to sand, and the items are right there for the taking. And so Taveri, well, basically the whole party goes and tries to identify the items. And the staff itself was just a quarterstaff +1, but being a +1, it's now magical, so that would really help Taveri coming later on in this video. And just as a little tease, but the robe was actually it was, I want to say it was like a type of like mage robe of fire resistance, but of course none of the party really wanted to wear it because, or at least Taveri was considering it, but it would have messed with one of her stats as a monk character-wise, so she decided she wasn't going to wear it, so they decided they were going to sell it. So they finish up in that room and start to head back, and they check out as they get back to where the main corridor is. They go to the last door to that right, and as they go through it, they start to hear the faint growling sound kind of coming off to the left as they listen closely. And Devia actually decides to go first, and as she kind of rounds that corner, she kind of actually bumps into part of the wall, and some stones kind of fall down the stairs there, and immediately they come across two dire wolves. I think it was either dire wolves or dread wolves. Regardless, so there's two wolves in this cave that they were chowing down on some meat. And so they hear Devia and start bum rushing Devia. So Taveri and Rowan, they rush in to try to help Devia. And poor Devia, she starts getting tore up between these wolves. And so she doesn't go down, but she just starts getting tore up. So Taveri and Rowan are trying their best to help Devia attack these wolves. And after a few minutes, they are finally able to took down. I'm sorry, I'm losing my words. They took down one of the wolves, and they're trying to fight off the other one. And Rowan's shooting her arrow. She actually uses also another arrow of biting. Taveri now uses her quarterstaff +1, doing a lot more damage, or more accuracy and damage now. And Devia is just trying to survive. So they eventually kill the other wolf and look around in this room. This room is kind of dimly lit, but also on the right side, there's more of this green crystal along the wall. So they finish up in there. They don't find much of worth right about there. As they continue on down, the path kind of winds around. That was a chamber off to the left. I don't know if I conveyed that earlier, but the path kept going around, and as they kept going around, they found another campsite. They found something very interesting. The campsite seemed to be used pretty regularly. It seemed like after investigating, it hadn't been used in a couple of days, but somebody else had been down here, and they find 2 potions of healing, and also Taveri also found some monk foot wrappings, and so that gave her like a bonus in key, and I want to say also increased her speed by +10. If she, I think anytime she used a key point, I think that's how I had it, and found a little bit of gold, not much, like 50 or so. But they also noticed around this area this black slime, and once again, Rowan was curious about this black slime, so she decided to lick/eat part of the black slime. So she starts to get really sick and basically just kind of poisons herself doing this. She spits the slime out, uh, obviously, and so they start kind of looking about this black slime, and it uh, just has this, poisonous properties to it. That's mostly about what they can tell about it for right now, but it will come in later on. So they head out of this chamber. They head back down to where they had peeked in that other room with the green crystal. So they open up that door. They go around the corridor, and once again, more of this green crystal just kind of wraps around this side of the hallway. And they found it really interesting that this kind of green crystal just keeps popping up everywhere. As they enter the next chamber, Rowan figures out that this is the same chamber that she saw the spider in. But this time they don't see any spiders lurking, out and about. So kind of tensely, Rowan goes back up to a northern corridor, and once again, it's a dead end right there. So she figures out, okay, there's got to be some other switch right here. This has to be the spot. So she starts feeling around, and she once again flips the switch pretty easily, or finds it, and the corridor opens up. So they just now found a shortcut back up to the surface. So in this room, there's actually a green crystal kind of protruding out of the room, or up towards the ceiling. And once again, just to test it, Devia put her hand up to the crystal, but this time nothing happened. And onto the south side of the room, there's actually a large drop off into a lot of darkness. And so the party kind of tests. I kind of gave them a few hints that something else might be down there, just to because we were doing this in Roll20, so they weren't sure if that was actually viable or not. So I gave them a few hints just to say yes, that there might be something down there. You just have to see about it. So they tested it to see how far the distance was. They either threw a rock or took out a certain item to drop down, and eventually they did hear the sound, and they judged the distance to be about 100 feet down. So between all of them, they actually had enough rope to make exactly 100 feet down. So Rowan is actually the first person to descend lower. And as she starts descending lower, picture more spider webs gradually just increasing the further she goes down. So she gets all the way down. She kind of tugs on the rope to say that she's all right, that the rest of the party can come down. So Devi and Taveri come down as well. And as they get down there, they notice more spiders kind of crawling on the walls, up on these webs, kind of just going up on the walls. And so the party quickly figures out that, okay, as long as we don't touch the webs, we should be fine. So they also try to sneak past all the spiders and all the webbing, which they do successfully. And it's not a big area that's down here, just like it kind of curves just a little bit, and that's about it. But as they kind of get around this one curve, there's a path, a doorway in front of them, and a doorway to the right. And at first they decide to go to the doorway to the right, which enters into this one room with more of that purple crystal along the walls. And on the edge of the wall over there on the far side is actually some boots. And so the party kind of rush over and they grab the boots. No traps go off, but so they surmise that this must be Zerlong's boots, given the description of what he gave. So they decide to come back out of the corridor and go to that last doorway. And as they get to that last doorway, they see sleeping on kind of a raised up small platform in a circular room with more of that purple crystal surrounding it is a wolf. And on closer inspection, Rowan figured out that this is actually a vampiric wolf, very rare. So at this point, the party really didn't want to wake this thing up just yet. So Rowan decides, because she sees another doorway off to the right, just kind of past it. So she decides she's going to try to sneak over there and see what's past, and the rest of the party is going to wait by this door and just kind of keep an eye on the wolf. So she gets to the other side, starts making her way. The wolf is still asleep, and she gets to the other side. She flips another false wall that gradually opens. She glances back and notices the wolf actually does not wake up. Starts to move some in its sleep, but it actually does not wake up. So she turns around and actually looks up. She can kind of tell there's a little bit of light coming from the top because there's a stairway leading upward. So she kind of gestures to the party that she's going to go take a look at this and then come right back. So the party just kind of, Deviant and Taveri give her a thumbs up. So she heads up the stairway, and then she heads up a little ways. It takes her so many minutes to actually get up to the very top. But as she reaches the top, she finds another way out of the dungeon. It opens up to the surface. So she immediately comes back and gestures to Deviant and Taveri to come on, like she found a way out. So Deviant and Taveri, they both get to the other side, sneaking past the wolf undetected. What was great, though, is I want to say it was either Devia or Taveri, but one of them, or both, said, we could kill this thing because this thing is probably worth a lot of money. So after just kind of whispering to themselves, they do agree that, you know what, let's try to kill this thing. So they plan a course of action that Devia would actually cast a Sacred Flame on the wolf. Rowan would use an arrow of ice, and Taveri would basically now just use her quarterstaff in unarmed fighting. Actually, no, I'm sorry. Taveri would not do that. She actually had something special in mind. She had those beads of fireball still, and she grabbed as many as she could except for one. She wanted to save one left for just an emergency situation. So she grabs him. She looks to Deviant and Rowan and says, "Are you guys ready?" They give a nod, and so she yanks him off the necklace, throws it at the wolf. It explodes. The wolf howls in pain and starts charging the group. At this point, Rowan actually had a brilliant idea that previously, I forgot to mention, that she laid down her bear trap that she had acquired. And as the wolf charged them, it actually got caught in Rowan's bear trap. So it's just out of the party's range, or its range to attack the party. So at this point, Rowan's getting off her ice arrows. Devia's casting Sacred Flame to try to kill this thing, and so after that round goes, the wolf is struggling to get out of this bear trap, just getting really frustrated, trying to claw and bite the party. Once again, they're just out of range. He's still trapped in the bear trap. So once again, Rowan is shooting off her arrows, and Devia is casting Sacred Flame, and Taveri's actually decides to run up and attack this thing with the quarterstaff. And after some really lucky rolls, they are actually able to kill this vampiric wolf. Mainly because of that those beads of fireball. I honestly gave him those as a breaking the story just for a little bit. Gave him those beads of fireball just to have fun, and in certain situations. So after killing the vampiric wolf, they decide they're gonna skin its pelt and bring it back with them. So they do, and they start to head up the stairs. Fun fact: there's actually more to these ruins than what they've explored. To this day, they haven't come back to the Ulcaster ruins, but just for, in case they watch this, there's actually more to it. They just didn't find it. So they leave, and as they come out, it's actually starting to get in the evening. So it's actually at this point it was around 10 p.m. as they left the ruins. So they figured, okay, let's just go an hour away from the ruins, and we'll just camp for the night. So they camp for the night. They each take a watch, and the first person that goes on watch is Devia. And the first thing, or the thing Devia notices is off in the north, to the northeast. She actually notices some movement, what looks like kind of dirt kind of coming up and down off the ground really fast off in the distance, kind of going in a straight line. It's not moving towards their direction, just kind of going off to the east. So after seeing that, then Devia decides to sleep, and Taviri actually takes the next watch. And what Taviri notices off to the south, what looks like, after doing a perception roll, she actually notices Bjornin and Prism. It looks like they're actually training in the early mornings, in the early morning hours. I'm sorry, I'm losing my words again. So she starts looking around. She doesn't see anything else, so she goes to bed as Rowan takes the last watch. And as Rowan takes the last watch, she notices, as she's looking around, she looks back at the Ulcaster school, and she sees kind of some strange lights coming from on top of the plateau. She's not sure what to make of it, and she tells the party later in the morning about what she saw. So, they, but as she's taking watch, though, all of a sudden, she kind of has a moment of, you could say, blacking out just for a few moments, and once again, the party has a shared dream. And the shared dream went like this. Once again, they're in a forested area. And once again, they are greeted by that hooded, looked like a human figure. And this time, they notice or realize that the hooded figure is actually John back at the burning Wizard Inn. So, and in the dream, John says to the party, "You walk as a mortal, taking no advantage from your talents within. So many things of flesh and bone are greater than you. Walk among them, these beasts that are less than you. See their strength, see how easily you fall to their muscle and skill." And at this point in the dream, the party sees a bunch of dire wolves and skeletons appear. And they also see 3 apparitions appear, and the apparitions are themselves. And they just see the dire wolves and skeletons just tear them to shreds. And John continues, "Why do you stand for this? Why do you submit to the flesh when death is bred in your bones? Do you realize the power you might hold? When the world of flesh is beneath you, even creatures mysteriously and magical will fall." And at this point, the dire wolves and skeletons, they fade away. And once again, apparitions of the party form before them. And this time, a giant Baylor, a creature from hell, appears with his flaming whip. And the party just wrecks this Baylor, takes it down easily. And then as they take it down, the dream fades, and the hooded figure fades, and they all wake up. And Rowan is now back alert as ever. So now, let's see. So that happens, and it's now the next morning. Once again, the party is disturbed by what has just happened. They kind of look around, they eat some of their rations, and decide they're going to head back to Baragost.